Hi, I'm Sear. I'm a singer and a singing teacher. I've been a singer of rock and pop styles for about 30 years and a teacher of those styles for nearly 20 years. So even though I've worked within the voice industry for an awfully long time, my actual voice training didn't start until I was in my mid-20s. I actually joined my first professional funk and soul covers band when I was 21, having had no training at all, because all of the training that was offered was for classical singing, and that just so wasn't me, and there really wasn't anyone around that could help. So unfortunately, I went into a full-time working band, not having had training, and I damaged my voice. I developed vocal nodules. So that's when I had 6 months worth of voice training. I had speech and language therapy exercises, and I sought out a voice coach who worked with musical theatre. So that's really where my proper voice education began, when I was 22 years old. After that, that's where it started. Really, by the end of my 20s, I was studying with rock and pop coach. I finally found one in central London, and I was also starting to pursue SDill voice training and workshops, and I did the level 1 and 2 courses then. I also did rock school exams up to grade 8 standard and pursued that, but it was really hard. There were no real rock and pop teaching qualifications around for me at the time, so a lot of my learning was done in attending SDill voice training courses, lots of reading, lots of YouTube video watching, and just lots of learning that way. So I was absolutely delighted when I came across the Voice Workshop Masters, because that really answered everything I wanted. I wanted a nice broad education to take me down the right path for the kind of singing that I want to teach safely and efficiently. So I was really pleased when that came along. So yes, I've had an unconventional route, shall we say. So I also run 2 choirs. One is for teachers in a primary school, and we try and get other teachers in. At the moment, unfortunately, that's not possible to do in person, so we've just kept it very small scale. But it's to help them with stress, because they work in a very difficult environment, in a very sort of challenging school environment, so I help them. And the others, my beloved community choir, who we got up to about 60-65 strong just before COVID-19 hit. So we're now running that online every week, and we've got about 30 to 35 people every week, which is pretty good, because the demographics of the people is most of them are over 65. So, obviously they're in the risk category. So it's great that we've got that running online. And I do a mixture of show tunes and folk music and sea shanties and soul music and ballads and popular, CCM stuff with them, and they absolutely love it. So at the moment, for instance, last night's rehearsal online, we did Can't Help Falling in Love with You by Elvis Presley, one from a chorus line, Hernando's Hideaway, which they love, Ole, and what was the final one? All Is Found from Frozen 2, which they adore. My research journey has been an interesting one. I've been doing the Voice Workshop MA pathway now for a year. 2 years, gosh, over 2 years. And I started off looking into voice registers. And in the course of looking into voice registers, at that time, just thinking that it was a laryngeal setting, not really appreciating the value of vocal acoustics, voice acoustics, formants, frequency bandwidths, stuff that I'd never been taught, because it was always assumed in rock and pop teaching that if you had a microphone, you didn't need that stuff. And what I learned just blew my mind out of the water. So then I started to change direction and look into how voice acoustics could help all manner of things. So my first postgraduate certificate qualification, my research then was about older teenage and young male singers in CCM accessing their upper register, and how can I facilitate that? How can I make it easier for them to do? So then that took me in a direction of looking at voice acoustics from that perspective. And then I started looking into the vocal tract and its use in individuality and style. And in the course of that, I started thinking about a rock and pop curriculum. There really isn't one in the United Kingdom. There should be. There is no postgraduate. We can see that because we're not in the classical style, we don't have a conservatoire arrangement. We don't have that master apprentice teaching standard. It's all quite sort of fast and loose, so to speak, academically. I really feel there ought to be a postgraduate course. So I started then. My last 2 pieces of research have been into looking into what may be common themes that could be tied together into a curriculum. And so my final project is exactly that. I'm going to write a curriculum for hopefully a postgraduate qualification from a UK institution to introduce a course for training rock and pop and soul singing teachers. That's what I would like to do. So the results of the last 2 studies I've done, which has led to this final dissertation project, have been really interesting. What I was looking for, I did a big literature review, and I mean big. And I mean literature by the umbrella term literature, which is to say internet references, blogs, web posts, YouTube videos, and all the books and all the papers. So it was quite a big undertaking, and I spread that over 2 assignments so that I could get those. And what I was looking for was common themes that would come up that were specific to rock, pop and soul pedagogy. And I found quite a few. And it was really interesting, because I think I love the term CCM. Thank you, Jeannie Levitri, for that. But CCM encompasses a lot of styles, and a lot of the research within CCM that has been done, and there hasn't been much of that, has been musical theatre related. And I love musical theatre, but I wanted to look at just rock, pop and soul styles, that type of popular contemporary style. So I found things like microphone technique. Very important to learn how to use a microphone, how to choose a dynamic one that suits your voice. The sound treatments, compression, reverb, delay, all of those sound treatments that you could get, so that at a very basic level, your students understand that even when they're singing in a microphone in a studio space, you know, you're not listening to the same standard of voice that you would hear from a production studio. It's getting you to recognize the differences. It's really important for students to understand that there's a lot of processing involved. So it's that. Things like using the vocal tract and vocal resonances to greater effect, so that you have a more resonant sound, and that you can adapt your vocal tract in different ways to have an individual voice. And individuality is highly prized in pop and rock music. So it's really important to understand how to play with those sounds and the impact that will have. So I use Voce Vista with students to now show them the changes that makes, and show them examples. I'm also very much about myth busting. Particularly, there's a lot of preconceptions about rock and pop music and singing and soul singing, that it's always belting. No, it isn't. That people don't really use their upper register apart from briefly. Not true. That they only ever do big kind of dynamic kind of stuff. Not true. Otherwise you would not have Ellie Goulding, you wouldn't have Dido, you wouldn't have all these people that have been hugely successful. So there is this whole colour wheel of voices, different types of voices under that umbrella, and you can make all these different sounds, and it's all acceptable within pop and rock singing. So I wanted to, and this idea that pop and rock singing is inherently damaging. It isn't. It isn't. It doesn't have to be. As long as you pay attention to your vocal health and you have good technique, and you know how to produce those sounds safely, it can absolutely be safe. So I'm pleased that I have found threads that I think are going to be really important towards building a curriculum. And now what I need to do is talk to the people who teach vast more numbers than I do. So institutions like ACM, BIM, ICMP, try and talk to people from there and see if they agree with what I've written or disagree, and see if together we can come up with some kind of curriculum. Lockdown with singing. Well, where do you start? I'm in a band. I'm in an 8-piece soul covers band, Stax and Motown and things like that. So as you can imagine, with 8 of us, our work has considerably shrunk because people aren't really allowed to have that many people inside. So we've done 1 or 2 outside gigs this summer, but we haven't done nearly as many. We'd normally be playing every Friday and Saturday night all through the summer, all into the winter, and definitely at Christmas. So that's not been great. We try and rehearse whenever we can and get together, but that's been frustrating. Choir-wise, I've taken one of my choirs online and the other I'm doing, because it's a very small group, socially distanced. I kind of adapted to online Zoom teaching for one-to-one students, actually. The good thing about it is that when you're talking about vocal tract resonances, you can quite clearly see, if someone is near to the camera, what their vocal tract is doing to an extent, what their tongues are doing, and what everything looks like close up, and so can they. So actually, in a way, having that mirror there, that can be quite a useful thing to have, but the time delays are difficult. I'm used to accompanying my students quite basically on the piano, and you can't do that in real time with Zoom because of the delays. So it's been an adaptation that I wasn't expecting, same as everybody else, but it's workable to an extent. I look forward to doing more face-to-face in the future, but it's workable. Another exciting thing is that I have been chosen to speak at the Choice for Voice conference, which was meant to be in September this year, run by the British Voice Association, but is now going to be run in September 2021 next year. And I've been asked to speak about my postgraduate certificate project, which was to do with male voice register changes as older teenage boys. So after their voices have initially gone through their changes, how to help them up through that passaggio. And I will be doing some of my myth busting there, playing excerpts from all kinds of different genre, pop, rock, R&B, soul, musical theatre, all with examples of male singers, very successful, well-known male singers, using their upper registers in very different ways. So I look forward to that. I would say, don't be afraid of exploring different areas before you make your decision. If you're absolutely passionate about one thing from the start and you know that's what you want, fantastic, all power to you. I didn't. I went into this looking for a nice broad education, which I got. And then I really liked the flexibility that you could look into different areas and then gradually allow those thoughts to move together into a direction. So I liked that aspect of it, is that you could just gradually narrow your field of interest. And I feel the journey that I've had from the beginning with registers and then looking at male voice register change has eventually led to the point I'm at now, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So I would say, don't necessarily feel you have to know everything up front. You don't. The whole thing is a very big learning journey, and it's totally fine to not know where you're going when you start.